over here, and it's a special edition, and let's speak about it over here. A special edition over here, and happens to be so. Tu B'Shvat Sameach to everyone that is watching over here live. And what is it? It's the 15th of Shvat. Hebrew date of 15th of Shvat, also in the Jewish calendar, also known as the New Year of the Trees, especially in contemporary Israel. The day is celebrated as an ecological. It's celebrated the New Year of the Trees, as we know that it's fantastic. It's written inside the Mishnah. We're going to learn about it over here as it comes in. In Israel itself, as a side note, some people will say it's also like marked as an ecological awareness day, and trees are planted in celebration in circles in Israel also to point out. But it's Tu B'Shvat, and it's not just, let's say, got minhag, roots, significance, but it's also cultural for many, many people, as they say. And the fruits that ripen from Tu B'Shvat were counted for the following year's tithes, respectively over here. So the name Tu B'Shvat is from the Hebrew date of the holiday, which occurs on the 15th of Shvat naturally, which stands for Tet and Vav, which adds up to 15 over here, which also it's known as Chamisha Asar B'Shvat, the 15th of Shvat. So it appears now in Tractate Rosh Hashanah as one of the 4 New Years in the Jewish calendar. The discussion of, let's say, when New Year occurs was a source of, let's say, detail among various different rabbis at that point in time. So the first of the first of Nisan is a new year for the kings and festivals, for example. That's where it's taken from. The first of Elul is a new year for the tithe of cattle. The Tanaim, we obviously know of Rav Elazar ben Shamua and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, will place this day on the 1st of Tishrei. The 1st of Tishrei is a new year for, let's say, years, calculation of the calendar for the release years. For example, the sabbatical Shemitah years, Jubilees, Yovel years, planting, and for the tithes of vegetables. What about the 1st of Shvat? What's interesting, the 1st of Shvat is a new year of trees according to the Bet Shammai, the school of Shammai. And according to Bet Hillel, the school of Hillel, they will place it on 15th of Shvat, rule in favor of Hillel that this specific day in of itself would be on the 15th, and it would be let's say the beginning of the agricultural cycle for this purpose of biblical tithe. That's something that we have to point out over here. So what is that? Okay, so there's I think it's in the book of Leviticus. They would actually quote over, I think in chapter 19 verse 23, on eating the fruit of trees produced during the first 3 years after they were planted. I think Neta Revai, this is going to refer to the biblical commandment in Leviticus in chapter 19 verse 24 to bring 4th year fruit crops to Jerusalem as tithe. The second tithe was a tithe that was collected in Jerusalem, and the poor tithe was something given to the poor, which was also calculated by where the fruit ripened before or after Tu B'Shvat over here. On the Talmudic, let's say, requirements for the fruit trees which use on Tu B'Shvat, that date of the Hebrew calendar, for calculating the age of a fruit-bearing tree, the Orla remains to this day in essentially the same form it had in Talmudic times. Obviously, we look at it, there's halachic, practical significances on this specific day in the realm of halakha, of Jewish law. Fruit that would ripen on a 3-year-old tree before Tu B'Shvat is considered Orla and is forbidden to eat, while fruit ripening on or after Tu B'Shvat is a tree's 3rd year and is permitted. In the 1st, 2nd, 4th and 5th years of the Shemitah cycle, and the second tithe is going to be observed specifically on this day by a ceremony redeeming tithing obligations with a coin. This is on the 3rd and the 6th years. The poor tithe is substituted, and no coin is needed for redeeming it. Tu B'Shvat is obviously also the cutoff date within regards to, let's just say, for determining to which year the tithes belong. It's actually interesting. Tu B'Shvat falls on the 15th date of the Hebrew month of Shvat, and it begins a 3-month series in years without a leap year of holidays that occur on the mid-month full moons that culminate in Pesach. That's something we have to point out. Now, we know in the Middle Ages, Tu B'Shvat was celebrated with a feast of fruits in keeping with Mishnaic description of the holiday as a new year. I think it was in the 16th century, the Kabbalist, Rabbi Isaac Luria of Tzfat, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, and his disciples would institute at that point in time a Tu B'Shvat Seder in which fruits and trees of the land of Israel, especially of the 7 species, were given symbolic meaning. The main idea was that eating 10 specific fruits and drinking 4 cups of wine in a specific order while reciting the appropriate blessings would bring human beings and the world close to spiritual perfection. In Israel, the Kabbalistic Tu B'Shvat Seder has been revived and is now celebrated by many Jews, religious and secular. The special Haggadot have been written for this purpose over here. For example, the Hasidic community, in some of them, they would pickle a candy such as etrog, citron, from Sukkot and eat it on Tu B'Shvat. Some pray that they will be worthy of a beautiful etrog on the following Sukkot. And Sephardic communities over here will prepare a dessert made of grains, dried fruits and nuts known as Ashura or Trijo Koka to celebrate this holiday. Another custom involves drinking both red and white wines to symbolize the transition from winter to spring. Tu B'Shvat also is very much celebrated in the Zionistic circles. We have to point out also they would call it, some people call it the Israeli Arbor Day, and often, let's say, referred to by the name in international media in of itself. That even, as I said before, ecological organizations in Israel and in the diaspora have adopted, let's say, this day itself, making environmental awareness programs. You can see all throughout the Jewish spectrum, they will appreciate this day. On kibbutzim in Israel, Tu B'Shvat is celebrated as an agricultural holiday. It's actually interesting. There's a famous Rabbi Ziv Yavetz. He was one of the founders of the Mizrahi religious Zionistic movement. He would take his students to plant trees in the agricultural town of Zichron Yaakov. This was. And this custom, I think in 1908, the Jewish National Fund and the Teachers Association, Jewish Teachers Association, will establish it, I think in 1901, overseeing the land, let's say, reclamation and afforestation of the land of Israel. In the early 20th century, if I'm not mistaken, the Jewish National Fund devoted the way to planting eucalyptus trees to stop the plague of malaria in the Hulo Valley. Today, the fund schedules major tree plantings events in large forests every Tu B'Shvat. Over 1 million Israelis take part in the Jewish National Fund's Tu B'Shvat tree planting activities over there. And so in keeping with, like, say, the idea of Tu B'Shvat marking the revival of nature, many of Israel's major institutions have chosen this day for the inauguration. The cornerstone laying of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem took place on Tu B'Shvat in 1918, and the Technion in Haifa on Tu B'Shvat in 1925, and the Knesset on Tu B'Shvat 1949. And I think in the diaspora, starting especially in North America in 1980s, Tu B'Shvat treated as Jewish Earth Day among communities, emphasizing all kinds of, let's say, actions, activism related to the environment and natural world. But these are just tidbits that don't have halachic significance, but Jewish communities will, let's just say, in of itself, appreciate this day and mark this day in of itself. This customary fruits. And obviously there's a specific Kabbalistic order associated today. People will eat fruits and nuts on Tu B'Shvat. Especially there's a custom to eating dry fruits and nuts, even among, let's say, those who are not following Kabbalistic rite. Fig, obviously it's Shivat Minim, figs, dates, raisins, carob, almonds are very popular. Many people also incorporate into their seders over there the 7 species which are associated with the land of Israel in Torah, which according to Devarim in chapter number 8, verse number 8, are wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives and dates. In Kabbalistic terms, the fruits that one eats, dried or fresh, can be divided up from lower or more manifest to high or more spiritual as follows. Fruits and nuts, which let's say, aid edible exteriors and soft edible insides, such as oranges, bananas, walnuts, and pistachio nuts. Let's see, they note the count of oranges and other citruses as wholly edible, in keeping with the interpretation of the etrog as being on the highest level over there. Fruits with soft exteriors but with hard pit insides, such as dates, apricots, olives, and parmesans. There's also fruit that is eaten whole, such as figs and berries, and there's various different Kabbalistic traditions over there that let's say, teaches that eating fruits in this order creates a connection with the tree of life and God placed in the Garden of Eden, as I think is mentioned in the book of Bereshit, where Adam and Eve had placed under the creation, were also represented with regards to Sfirot by Sfirot. In effect, one is, let's say, traveling from the most external or manifest dimension it's symbolized with fruits, with a shell on the most inner dimension, which is symbolized not even by completely edible fruits, but rather by a fourth level that may be likened to smell. At the same time, one drinks various proportions of red and white grape juice, wine, from white to red wine, just a drop of white in it, also corresponding to these stages over there. Now, let's speak about various other Tu B'Shvat customs over here. We're talking about all of it. Tu B'Shvat, the Hebrew letters is Tet and the Vav. Also, the Mishnah marks the day, or the day from the fruit ties, which are counted each year. Starting on this day, there's biblical prohibition on eating the first 3 years of the Orla, and the requirement to bring the fourth year, Neterabai, from the temple in Jerusalem were counted over there. Now, it's interesting, we can add on extra things. We know that there's a question over here from the Sephardic Q website. We like to explore a little of the Sephardic different customs over here. What does a classic? Now, I'm using a nice article over here from I think the Sephardic Federation of America. They give an excellent article. What they ask over here, what does it's called American Sephardic Federation, if I'm not mistaken. They've got a Sephardic World Weekly, which presents a letter from the land of Israel, which says, they ask a question, what does a classical Sephardi tradition teach us about the meaning of Tu B'Shvat and the obscure holiday, which was let's say, many Jews, obviously, we celebrate eating fruits in the land of Israel, obviously, naturally, and we should do it. In order, they will bring an answer and a background within regards to it. They just give an introduction, which we're going to state over, that there's a Mishnaic collection, obviously, of Jewish law from 10 to 220 Common Era, records the argument, obviously, regarding the dating for Rosh Hashanah Le'ilanot, the New Year's of the trees. Now, the question, obviously, is posed as falling the 15th of Shvat. That's obviously in Hebrew, or the first of Shvat, like the school of Shammai that we said about before. So we talked about that initially. The school of Hillel obviously ruled that New Year is on Tu B'Shvat, while obviously Shammai said it's on Rosh Chodesh Shvat. And the sages would go with, obviously, naturally, with the sage, the great Rabbi Hillel, the house of Hillel in of itself. Many important sages like Rabbi Akiva agreed with the opinion of the school of Shammai, for example. This fact, I think this Rosh Hashanah will become important, within regards to the story of the American Sephardic Federation, which I'll bring out here. So he states over, specifically, that in the 16th century, the great mystical scholars of Judaism at that point in time, the Kabbalists of Tzfat, institutionalized a celebratory aspect of Tu B'Shvat by creating a Seder along the lines of the Pesach Seder, in which Jews first grant symbolic meaning to the first fruit of the land and then eat them. At first glance, this procedure seems, flabbergasting. Why celebrate by eating fruit? There's a question over here. What's the best connotations with the Torah? So obviously, yes. So the answer of course is yes. Recognizing context opens the understanding the meaning of Tu B'Shvat, and very interesting. There's they state over here, in short, and according to Kabbalistics, Tu B'Shvat is intended to repair, let's say, the sin of Adam and Eve. Let's just say, but how so? They will pose over here in this thing, and I think it would actually, interestingly enough, famously on 28th of January in 2021. A few years ago, there'd be a gathering of various different Sephardi Chachamim from various customs of the Western Sephardic Spanish Portuguese, including Rabbi David Ben Lolo, Montreal, Rabbi Jonathan Elazar de Mota from the Dominican Republic, Rabbi Albert Gabay of Philadelphia, Rabbi Nachshon Rodriguez Pereira of Amsterdam, Rabbi Ira Rhodes from New York, Rabbi Emodi Spangolotte, I think possibly from Rome, Rabbi Emmanuel Valenci of Bordeaux, and Rabbi Dr. Martin Vandenberg from Bet Shemesh. He was rabbi in various places across the world, including Hong Kong and in England, also in the United Kingdom, and famous Memphis Marks and other places also. Now, they state over here in this article, according, I think, to Rav Uri Shuki, he was a contemporary Algerian Israeli rabbi. He was a student of the great Algerian thinker and Kabbalist Rabbi Yehuda Ashkenazi, also known as a Mentor. The ultimate important, let's just say, at that point in time, of I think they say, of eating is not limited to physical consumption. On a deeper level, eating enacts and symbolizes the absorption or internalization of the outside world. And let's say, in order to make his point, Rav Shireki ingeniously reads the book of Bereshit, and against the grain of its teachings, conventional meanings and teachings, that there's no inherent sin in eating from the tree of knowledge. Instead, over here, very, very interesting. Instead, the sin, which was the sin of Adam's lies in internalizing the tree of knowledge before one has eaten from the tree. And very, very interesting. Rav Shrekki, he's going to stress that life needs to come before knowledge. When knowledge comes before life, one might be liable to end up walking a walking encyclopedia that is not active inside. However, Rav Shrekki doesn't leave it at that. He additionally argues, apparently, that assuming one has eaten from the tree of life, it is then a sin not to eat from the tree of knowledge. That's what he's saying. When one's inner world is rooted in the tree of life, the Jewish tradition, and all that entails in its terms of ethical values, moral conduct, deep connectedness to the Jewish people in the land of Israel, the increasing knowledge only augments the flow of life. Rav Shrekki emphasizes his point by turning to Onkelos, the first century Aramaic translation of passage from the book of Devarim, in which Moses reprimands the people of Israel for being naval velo chacham. The conventional English language translations usually read, a foolish and unwise people, translates Onkelos, a nation wide that received Torah but did not become wise. And Rav Shrekki's reading of Onkelos, a nation that received Torah, the tree of life it was, but did not become wise, that did not then eat from the tree of knowledge over there. So what is Rav Shrekki's teaching over here? On Tu B'Shvat we eat the fruits of the land of Israel, and in doing so, symbolically internalize all the land and life has to offer. On Tu B'Shvat we repair the primal sin of Adam and Eve by consuming fruits in the holiness, and in so doing so, we symbolically sanctify all of life. But Rav Shrekki's teaching might seem to be boldly innovative. It's more correct to view it as full flowering of a teaching that was previously scattered in throughout the Jewish tradition. This can be seen when we follow the trail of the etrog on Tu B'Shvat, a fruit usually associated with the Sukkot holiday in of itself, respectively. So very, very interesting. So let's just talk about other places where Tu B'Shvat is celebrated. For example, just to give a side tidbit, we'd like to speak about various diverse countries all over the world. Tu B'Shvat is even celebrated by the Bnei Israel community of India as a feast of Elijah the prophet. And very interesting. So the American Sephardic Foundation will actually speak very much about these communities in of itself. Very, very interesting. According to a Medrash, there is the fruit that Adam and Eve consumed in the Garden of Eden was an etrog. Therefore, we shouldn't be surprised to discover that one of the leading Iraqi rabbis of the 19th century, famous Kabbalist, Rabbi Yosef Chaim, he lived between 1835 to 1909. He was also known for his book, the Ben Ish Chai. He would compose a Tu B'Shvat petition. He prayed to find a ripe etrog, as I said before. What's more, many Jewish people have a tradition of eating etrog jelly on Tu B'Shvat. Lastly, Talmudic records that Rabbi Akiva picked an etrog on the first of Shvat. True, not on Tu B'Shvat, but as we noted, Rabbi Akiva actually behaved in accordance with the school of Shammai, who ruled that the new year for the trees falls on the first of the month. The schools, obviously, of Hillel and Shammai might have argued about this precise date, but they aimed for the same goal, rectifying the sin of Adam and Eve. So obviously, we're reading this actually from the American Sephardic Federation, encourages, obviously, and we all encourage all of Am Yisrael to actually read and celebrate this amazing day here of Tu B'Shvat, different kinds of fruits, foods, tasty fruits, and bring deep impulses, high aspirations of Jewish tradition in of itself. So it's a really, really awesome day on many, many different factors. So it's the 15th of Shvat. What's actually interesting is 15th of Shvat also, I think, marks pretty much 1 month before the Jewish festival of Purim we are also in, so that's a significant day. And they actually say that many people would, on 1 month before the Jewish festival itself, we start learning the halachot pertaining to that specific month, respectively. So many people on Purim, Shushan Purim, will start learning the laws of Pesach. So hence, here we're coming into Tu B'Shvat, and then we're going to come out of Tu B'Shvat. Obviously, it's a time period to start learning the Hilchot for Purim, for Ta'anit Esther, for the Megillat Esther, all different laws within regards to it. And obviously, it's a very, very exciting time for everybody, and a time to embrace, a time to learn, and a time to grow. That's something I very, very much point out over here. The famous Tu B'Shvat songs that are sang, Tu B'Shvat Hagiach, Chag La'ilanot, and many, many other ones. It's a joyous time. We sing together. It's a time for family. We do the Seder night in the evenings. We come home, and there's specific order how to say it. I recommend everyone to learn about the various different laws within regards to this awesome day. And many people pray also to find a good etrog for the next year that's coming up. So for next Sukkot that comes up. So many people will daven for it. Obviously, many stories have been said about the etrog. I've said them here on this channel on numerous occasions before. And very, very important. So very, very interesting over here. So yeah, friends over here, we're a community here. We love exploring about different Jewish holidays and just learning more, just in general. That's our plans over here. We're a community. We are doing that at the moment. And yeah, enjoy over here. Enjoy all the content. We don't just record videos of Jewish festivals over here. We're also writing a rabbinic encyclopedia on great rabbis of yesteryear. It is over there. And we've already recorded about 1,400 biography videos here on this channel. We've explored the different countries all over the world, various different countries, Jewish community histories, let's just say, in of itself. And very, very proud that we've done that. And yeah, we want to continue going from strength to strength at the moment and improving. Also, what we do on this channel, we do tours all over Israel. We like to see agricultural and biblical Israel over here. We go, if you look at over at our channel, we go all over archaeological spots. We try and go to just see the beauty of Eretz Israel. We've done a lot of tours all over Jerusalem. That's something I would point out. We've done tours all over the city of Bet Shemesh, and we've done in Haifa, and we've been to Ashkelon and to Ashdod, and going around there. We also record videos here on the weekly Torah portion. Every single week we will sing it, imbue it, and so on and so forth over here. And yeah, it's amazing over here. And yeah, wishing you all well. And Tu B'Shvat Sameach, this famous Tu B'Shvat. The most famous Tu B'Shvat song is Tu B'Shvat Hagiach Chag La'ilanot. Obviously, many people will learn that in elementary school, in high school, and many other songs that I can think of. And it's time on 7 species. What we did last week, we were in a city called Beitar Elite, and over there we would actually visit and see a roundabout over here, and it had encompassed, it was so beautiful, encompassed the 7 species inside that roundabout in of itself, and it just looked absolutely breathtaking and gorgeous over there. So that's very, very interesting, and yeah, very interesting over here. So yeah, wishing you all well, and a Chag Sameach, and take care. Tu B'Shvat Sameach. So don't forget, everyone that you've tuned in live at the moment, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and join our community over here. And then by joining, you'll be able to be up to date with all different great contents that we've got over here, and you know, learn much more, and so much get back over there. So all, and Chag Sameach. Thanks for watching, everyone. Appreciate it.